No flashy Jedi flips, no Force ghosts whispering destiny. Just ordinary people stuck under the boot of a system that does not care whether they eat or breathe. And somehow that is scarier than any Death Star superlaser, because it looks a whole lot like the world outside your window. Cassian Andor is not some chosen one. He is not the child of prophecy or the heir to a galactic throne. He is a guy who just wanted to survive and maybe make a few credits along the way. And then the Empire pushed too hard, and suddenly this regular man becomes the spark that threatens to burn everything down. That is not fantasy. That is history repeating itself. And Star Wars somehow snuck it onto Disney+. And you can laugh because even the villains feel familiar. A corporate security officer desperate for validation. A bloated government obsessed with paperwork over people. An entire prison system built on breaking men until they forget they were human in the first place. Tell me that does not sound like something you have read in a headline this week. It is Star Wars, yes, but it is also just a little too close to comfort. The crazy thing is that Andor makes rebellion feel less like a spectacle and more like a chain reaction. One person refuses to stay silent. Another cracks under the weight of injustice. A whole community finally says enough. And boom, you have a revolution. No destiny required, no magic needed. Just people who are done playing along. That is why this show feels dangerous in the best way. And sure, you could brush it off and say, relax, it is just a TV show. But that is exactly the point. Stories matter because they echo the world that creates them. And when a galaxy far, far away suddenly feels like it could be your neighborhood, that is not just entertainment. That is a wake-up call dressed in blasters and TIE fighters. In this video, we're going to dive into how Andor takes the fantasy of Star Wars and drags it into our reality. Why it feels less like a show about space heroes and more like a blueprint for rebellion. And how the scariest thing about it is not that it could happen in a galaxy far, far away, but that it already has, and it could again. So, let us talk about it. Andor starts in a way that instantly makes you curious. No Jedi, no Sith, no lightsabers glowing in the dark. Just Cassian, a regular guy, stumbling through the messy reality of survival in a galaxy that does not care if he lives or dies. That alone sparks a question. What happens when Star Wars pulls away the fantasy and just shows us the grind of everyday people? From the first episodes, we get a peek at a different kind of rebellion. Not one built on prophecies or chosen ones, but one that grows out of the suffocating weight of injustice. A corporate security force that acts like it owns everything. A government that is more concerned with control than protection. It feels less like science fiction and more like a mirror of headlines we see in our own world. Every little detail nudges us deeper into the story. The way Cassian hides his past. The way ordinary workers whisper about the Empire but never speak too loudly. Even the prison arc where men are forced to build parts they do not understand, with the cruelest punishment being the reminder that their lives are disposable. It all begs the question. How close is fiction to reality? Andor does not hand us easy answers either. There is no sudden reveal that Cassian is secretly connected to the Force. No magical destiny waiting to unfold. The show asks us to consider what rebellion really looks like without myth behind it. It is a question that hooks you because it does not feel like a fantasy. It feels like something that could happen right outside our door. That curiosity is the core of Andor's power. It is Star Wars stripped down to its rawest form. A story that forces us to wonder if rebellion in fiction looks a little too much like rebellion in real life. And maybe that is why it keeps us glued to the screen. But with that curiosity comes a sense of frustration. Because the more you watch Andor, the more you realise how close the galaxy's problems are to our own. The Empire is not some cartoon villain twirling its moustache. It is a slow, grinding machine of bureaucracy, corporations and surveillance. And that feels a little too familiar. You can see it in how Cyril Khan is portrayed. A low-level security officer obsessed with rules and order, convinced he is doing the right thing. But his loyalty to the system makes him dangerous. He is not evil in the traditional sense. He is just a cog in a system that rewards obedience and punishes compassion. And that is infuriating because it mirrors so many real-world institutions. Then there is the Empire's chokehold on communication. entire communities cut off, rumours spreading faster than truth, and no accountability for the people at the top. Sound familiar? Governments and corporations today control more information than ever, and the line between efficiency and oppression has never been thinner. Watching Andor hammer that point home feels like the writers are screaming at us, but the galaxy is just ignoring it. Beneath all the political commentary, Andor is also a story soaked in sorrow. Because when revolutions begin, they do not come without sacrifice. And the show makes that brutally clear. Take the character of Marva, Cassian's adoptive mother. She spends her final years watching her community sink deeper under Imperial control. Her last message is a desperate cry for people to wake up and fight back. And while it is inspiring, it is also heartbreaking. Because her entire life is consumed by resistance she never gets to see succeed. Then there is Namik, the young rebel idealist whose manifesto becomes one of the most powerful elements of the story. He dies before his words can spread, before his vision of freedom can truly take hold. And that loss stings because it shows us that revolutions are often built on the lives of those who never see the outcome. Even Cassian himself is a portrait of sorrow. He's not the fearless rebel leader we eventually meet in Rogue One. He's a man dragged into a fight he never asked for, haunted by guilt and scarred by violence. His story is a reminder that rebellions are not born from hope alone. They are born from grief, anger, and the unbearable weight of oppression. The sorrow in Andor lingers because it reminds us of the cost of real resistance. Heroes do not always survive. Communities do not always stay whole. And the scars of rebellion last far longer than the battles themselves. Yet within that sorrow lies awe, because Andor shows us rebellion not as a glamorous adventure, but as a breathtaking act of defiance. And somehow, that makes it even more powerful. Think about the Ferrix funeral scene. The entire town marching together, the drums echoing, the people pushing back, not with weapons, but with unity. It is one of the most awe-inspiring images in Star Wars history, because it feels real, raw, and terrifyingly possible. Or the prison break on Narkina 5, men who had been broken by routine suddenly finding the courage to rise up. The chant of one way out echoing through the halls as bodies hurl themselves into uncertain freedom. That scene is pure cinematic electricity. It is not just Star Wars spectacle, it is human spirit at its rawest form. Even the small acts inspire awe. Mon Mothma risking everything in the shadows of politics. Luthen Rael delivering monologues about sacrifice that send chills down your spine. These characters embody what rebellion looks like when it costs you everything. And watching them is both humbling and exhilarating. Andor proves that awe does not need Jedi powers or galaxy-spanning battles. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can witness is ordinary people standing together and refusing to be crushed. That is where the true awe of the series lives. For all its heavy themes, Andor also plants seeds of hope. Because if a show this dark and this real can resonate with audiences, it proves people are hungry for stories of resistance. And that means maybe we are paying attention more than we think. Hope is scattered throughout the series in quiet ways. In Nemik's manifesto, which survives his death to inspire others. In the Ferrix community, which chooses solidarity over submission. In Cassian himself, who transforms from a man running from responsibility into someone ready to embrace it. Those sparks of hope feel earned, not handed out. And what makes that hope resonate is how grounded it is. It does not come from a prophecy or a destiny. It comes from choices. People deciding they have had enough, deciding they will not be afraid anymore. That is hope built from action, not wishful thinking. It also gives us hope in our own world. Because if Star Wars can tell a story this honest and still leave us inspired, then maybe fiction really does remind us of what is possible. Resistance is not about waiting for heroes to arrive. It is about realizing the heroes are already here, hidden in plain sight, waiting to step forward. That is the hope Andor gives us, that no matter how heavy the system presses down, there will always be people willing to stand up. And sometimes that is enough to spark a fire. And yet the ultimate truth Andor leaves us with is tragic. Revolutions are never clean. never painless, and never guaranteed. For every moment of hope, there is a reminder of what is lost. And that reflection lingers long after the credits roll. Cassian himself is a tragic figure. We know his future. We know he will give his life for the rebellion in Rogue One. His journey is inspiring, but it is also heartbreaking because it reminds us that true resistance demands sacrifice. He fights not because he expects to live to see the victory, but because he cannot accept silence any longer. Andor's tragedy also lies in how close it feels to reality. The show's not just telling us a story about a galaxy far, far away. It is warning us about what happens when systems of power go unchecked. It is telling us that oppression creeps in slowly, that complacency fuels it, and that resistance is often the last resort of people with nothing left to lose. But in that tragedy, there is resolution. Because Andor proves that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit does not disappear. It may break, it may bleed, but it endures. And sometimes that endurance is enough to topple empires. So the scary truth is this: Andor is not just fiction. It is a reflection of what could happen in our world if we are not careful. And maybe that is why it feels less like entertainment and more like a blueprint, a warning wrapped in a story, daring us to pay attention before it is too late.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.